I suppose I really want to tease out through the latter half of this interview that I'm really interested in what it is that you think is making a difference when families are able to be supported to make whatever we want to call it, sustained change, impact, recovery. And I think we can use different language, but I'm really interested in what that is. And you might want to answer it all three levels, really. You might want to ask it about what needs to happen systemically, what needs to happen within the kind of micro-organizational worker stuff, and then what might need to just happen, much more directly for the families in a sense, and maybe even do them the opposite way. What's most important for the families first to make sure that happens, and then for the workers, but how does that need to change in a system or something like that? I don't know. Yes, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that makes such a big difference is having an approach that is inclusive.
Okay.
That includes the person, the network, the family. When we think about well-being outcomes, which are now beautifully written into our legislation, gives us such an opportunity. Where is our well-being tied up? It's tied up in our own sense of self, our own contribution, but it's also a sense of belonging and who is around us and loving and being loved. So human beings know where their well-being is rooted. And if we're not inclusive, if we only work with individuals, we can't kind of understand what is at the heart of things for people.
Sure. And the classic example being something like someone in the room with a worker in what's considered a confidential individual treatment, and the family member's the one that's sat in the car park in the car that's bought them and going to take them home. And I mean, that's the classic example, isn't it, of those kind of things? Yes.
It is. It is. And, we developed a number of services to support those families. And I think that the carers, the families, whatever you like, they need time and attention, but it's really helpful to try and build confidence in our workforce to bring them together. And it is a different way of thinking because they've been used to one-to-one relationships alone, haven't they? And
yes.
We went through decades of the concept that the individual is the one, and you're not going to share any information with the distressed families. You're going to give them another service over here, and then never the two shall meet. So the individual's confidentiality resulted in services saying, no, sorry, I can't talk to you. The very people who are at the heart of the motivation for the one we're working with to actually make a change. So holistic, inclusive, really skilled staff who understand the psychology of all of that. And that doesn't mean trained in anything in particular. It means just being open to those concepts and feeling comfortable with their conversational skills that allow them to empathize with everybody in the situation. And as they're empathizing with everyone in the situation, it builds empathy in those relationships. So, and that empathy, understanding that John's doing his best, or that we're trying to manage, understanding everybody's perspectives, builds with empathy, builds the capacity for change. So if we just work on individual routes and then try and fit the pieces back together, I think there are more difficulties in that. Although the individual work has a place, but it's not the whole answer. Changing one person.
Yeah, of course, because if you think about the example of the detox, well, we're not going to send the whole family for detox. So at that moment, we need an individual intervention, of course.
Yeah. But what you'd hope for is that those experienced nurses in the detox unit are understanding the importance of family and networks and friendships. May not be family anymore. It could be friendships. It could be the thing that makes me feel better in any given day. So you'd hope that they'd have those concepts in their mind, not some old narrative about, okay, John, you're clean now, everything's fine. We don't want to see you back here, mate. And, kind and friendly. But, that whole concept of a continuum of support is so important, isn't it? And often there were big gaps in that continuum. So I would say holistic. I would say thoughtful and insightful, I would say seeing the uniqueness of people, because our services are uniform, people are not. So if we only measure how many of our services we give, we don't get anywhere close to the uniqueness of this person and how it touched their lives and what the outcome was. That means we're not changing, we're not developing. And healthy organizations, healthy public services should be learning and changing all the time. And learning, we mentioned commissioning earlier, learning, when you commission someone, if you define it all, tie it all up, you don't learn from them. They're out there knowing what's going on in the ground. So I would say holistic, skilled, respectful, engaging, thinking about those elements are part of the philosophy that leads to more effective outcomes. And then people making choices. So many people have stabilized their lives and given themselves new possibilities through community. Yeah, the recovery community, fantastic support. But it has to be something they invite in, doesn't it? Not something that's inflicted. You will go there and you will learn from them, and you've got a similar life, so maybe you can support one another. It's got to be a different kind of conversation that helps people see how being part of that will ease them through that really tricky journey towards something they've identified and articulated as an outcome. And that outcome might be, I will be contributing to the world, maybe doing some voluntary work myself. I'll be building bridges back to my family. I will be seeing my grandson again, and I will be supporting others. So if that's my outcome, then the journey makes sense about what they need to work on, building bridges with their daughter to see the grandchild, creating that sense of hope. So that's what should define our work.
And you're right, because those are, and I think this is so important, they are different outcomes to anyone's relationship with drug or alcohol. The relationship with drug or alcohol will change in order to facilitate that journey, but that's not the outcome. The outcome doesn't get described in that terms. Like you say, the outcome is, and I hear it a lot. I know what you're talking about, relationships, families. I hear people strip it down to even more kind of basics, really. I just want to be able to sit around the table and have dinner with my mum again and stuff like that.
Exactly.
They put it in those really concrete languages. And when they describe it that way, the words alcohol or drugs aren't in that description of the future.
No.
That doesn't mean they're not going to have to change their relationship with alcohol and drugs, but it's something that happens as part of the journey. It isn't the end goal. Yes,
so well described, and that outcome is perfect, because nobody says in their outcome that they will be destructively drinking or no longer in touch with family. It's not their outcome, is it? But the journey to get there, how challenging. And
of course,
it's enormously challenging. But once you've heard someone's articulated outcome, you're alongside them, deeply and respectful of how tough it is.